my dad advice, I'm going to tell everyone who's listening what my father told me every single day growing up until I left home. Bring a jacket. Hey guys, this is the Hard Times Strong Men, cheering up a better class of man. And today we've got Dadisode Winter. But first, a dad joke. 6, you go first.
All right. What do a tick and the Eiffel Tower have?
A tick in the Eiffel
They're both
Tower.
Paris sites.
That's...
That's almost worse than last week.
You should feel ashamed of yourself.
Or last month, sorry. Last month's Dadisode.
And it's so great.
That hurt.
Yeah.
Nomad.
What do you call a factory that only makes okay products?
What?
Satisfactory.
Goodness.
Oh.
Where did Noah keep the bees?
Where did Noah keep the bees? I don't know.
In the archives.
Oh,
The archives.
That's good too. Oh man.
I think I killed 6.
Wow. So dumb. But here we are. Wow.
I think that's my favorite part of the episode. Anyway, so we're doing a Dadisode today on winter. Winter has come. It's getting colder. So what do you guys have? What's your 2 cents on winter? How can people best prepare for this? Because some people, namely the Californians, the Floridians, all those kids who run around in, shorts and flip-flops and at the end of February, they don't really know what to do and why what they're doing is wrong. So what are you guys' best 2 cents on just winter?
Feel personally attacked.
It's because you were.
I hate you. So I guess for me, I'll just kind of call back to my days in the northern parts of the states. I mean, good Lord, when I left the house, like depends on how cold it was, but I was bundled up. Like I was layered up, hat on my head, gloves, if not on my hands, but in my pockets. I mean, if it was cold enough, I had like hand warmers, at least in one of the pockets, so if I needed them, I could just get them out,
Okay.
crack them open, and good to go. But I mean, jeez, heavy socks. I mean, at least that's what I'm thinking on my person at the very least.
Okay. So using good layers, having good fabrics like wool, something that's going to keep its, thermal properties when it gets wet, having extra pairs of clothing or, things to help, assist you get warm. Something that I always did when I was growing up was, I always had, obviously a knife and a lighter. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but my old man, he grew up in Wisconsin, so he'd go out to school in the morning and his entire door would be snowed over. So he grew up in more cold of what what Nomad grew up with. Not quite, but getting there. But layering is your first line of shelter, right? It's your first line of protection. So it's important to be mindful of the weather and to dress accordingly, because I think Nomad, you and I were talking about you going to the gym and seeing people walk up in shorts and flip-flops or Uggs or whatever else, and they're not giving the weather, not giving its due diligence. If you have negative 30 degree temperatures, you're risking frostbite. You're not in a good way, and people don't take this seriously at all.
I don't even think you need to live in Nunavut or whatever like me. I think because you mentioned before, what year again was that huge winter storm in Texas?
21.
So that's a real relevant example on people who don't even own this stuff at all.
Yeah.
So I don't even think, again, if you obviously if you don't live as far north I do, then you're probably not really going to see the relevance in this. But the people in Texas in 21 are a prime example, or I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of like, have there been any other major huge storms in the United States in the last 10 years that like, destroyed entire places where it wasn't like normal for these people? And how many people didn't have, the proper clothing?
I don't know, but I don't think it really depends on, the type of, disaster, the type of calamity, but people just aren't prepared in general. Something that we've talked offline about is, just having basic utility in your vehicle. Like how many people don't have, in like northern states don't have tire chains in their car, or don't have jumper cables, or don't have a wool blanket, or
a shovel,
rations, or water, or shovel, or anything.
Cat litter or something.
Yeah, cat litter. I mean, goodness, man. I mean, how many people don't do their due diligence on, just keeping good upkeep on their vehicle, keeping all the fluids stocked up. I mean, make sure that your tires have adequate pressure, adequate tread, anything. People don't think about it, it's outside, out of mind until, it's suddenly in your face.
Yeah, and I know, was it a couple weeks ago or something? I don't know. I'm trying to think back. There was a huge storm in like New York, and someone posted, the guy that we shall not name because he's like unanimously hated in the social media world right now because everything's from a special operations background or story, but he made a tweet about it, about how like and like this I will agree with. His like tweet comment that someone shared on Instagram was that a couple 100 years ago or 100 years ago, men were still like making fires and like looking for their food, or everyone in the household knew how to do this, and people in upstate New York died in their vehicles in a traffic jam in a snowstorm. Like, that's pretty pathetic that you don't have like proper clothing in your vehicle. What if you get stuck?
Yeah.
Well, or just like, well, you need to be able to, like, if you are stuck with your vehicle. I mean, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but my sister and her family, got caught, same sort of thing, in this huge traffic jam for miles and miles because the road just got trashed, and they were stuck overnight before they could move along. But you imagine the people who don't have anything. You're stuck in a freezer, literally, with nothing else.
That happened a few years ago in Atlanta? Like that huge snowstorm hit, and then people were dying in their cars on the highway.
Yeah.
Because it's just the Atlanta, like city of Atlanta is like DOT just could not. They weren't equipped to handle that kind of stuff. Same thing if like a snowstorm happened down here in Florida, we would not be like ready for that.
Well, same thing here in Texas. We saw in 2021. Texas does not have the infrastructure, and why should it? Any other time of the year is not a worry, but the one event, it's suddenly your problem. And if you're stuck in your vehicle with nothing, you have to stay with inadequate supplies, with an inadequate, environment, because you can't leave because you don't have what you need to leave. I mean, you catch 22'd yourself, and you're freaking dead because of it.
I know more recently too, here in the last, like, I think it was like, I don't know, since January or something, all the clowns living in Vancouver, British Columbia, some huge snowstorm happened, and there was like, I don't know, thousands of people trapped in their vehicles. And then when the news reported it all the next day, they said these people couldn't even leave their vehicles because they didn't even have proper footwear. And I'm like, you live in Canada. And I get if you work in an office, and again, I'll play devil's advocate, but I'll like crush their souls right now. If you work in an office 9 to 5 and you wear dress shoes going to work, cool. Have boots in your vehicle. Like, that's no excuse. Or if you're some like businesswoman and you're wearing heels and a dress, I'm like, I don't care. It's the winter. You could probably have that stored in your vehicle. And just like you said, Seven, these people are not like prepared for the worst case. And this isn't like some like unheard of, fantasy that's never going to happen. I'm like, that happened a month ago in like Vancouver, Canada. And thousands of people were trapped in their vehicles and didn't know what to do because they couldn't get out and walk.
It's crazy. I mean, and so when we started getting our first, freezes here in Texas, I threw a bag in my trunk, had extra clothing, extra layers, had, hand warmers, some, a little bit of food, and boots, like actual like
winter boots,
built up winter boots, because if I have to, walk, I'm not gonna be walking home in my Crocs. Like that's not a good day, man.
Yeah.
But so what would you guys say at a minimum, obviously this is our winter episode, so specifically for winter, what people should have in their vehicle?
Blanket. at the very least a blanket, an extra coat.
Proper footwear.
Personally, for me,
Like I said,
proper footwear. Yeah, I honestly had a pack of a bulk pack of the hand warmers just in my back seat.
Yeah.
Like not in the trunk, just in case that got frozen over and I couldn't get in there. I mean, I could fold down the seat to get in there, but regardless, it was in my back seat, so I could just easily access it. I feel like you should probably have water in there, but you risk freezing that if you leave it in there. Like when the car's not on, so the heat's not running overnight, say, your water could freeze in that. I mean, Nomad, you could probably attest to that if you've ever done that.
and we talked about that in our everyday carry Dadisode whenever you guys talked about water, and I straight up said I carry water in a backpack, but I don't leave it in my vehicle. I bring the backpack with me everywhere for that exact reason, because it'll freeze. It'll freeze in like 2 hours in your truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With a vehicle, you have so much more space available. I feel like it, justifies a lot more. So like, having a camp kettle, having a burner stove, things like that. And I've even seen like, the stealth campers. Have you seen those guys?
Yeah. Yeah. They sleep in parking lots in their vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen, where a guy was camping -20 or some nonsense, and he had the catering food warmers, the little alcohol, like little liquid fuel, and he burned one of those. It went for like 5 hours, 8 hours, something, and it kept him warm the entire night. Every time one burned down, he'd light another one. That's something that's minimal space. Depending on what it's burning, you have to be careful of. Like carbon monoxide, obviously don't trade freezing to death for suffocating to death, but 60 made a really great point on the hand warmers. Those are huge, and you can go on Amazon, you can buy like the huge space ones, and you're good to go. I have a rescue blanket from when I was in the Army, and it's one of those was it like the chemically heated blankets activates with air. Rip it open, it's an entire blanket that warms somebody. It's a casualty type blanket.
Cool.
But I think the caveat for me for the blanket, what you said, Six, was specifically wool. I think would be the way to go with that.
Yes.
With space and weight not being as much of a concern, I think like that's a really great option for that. With its thermal qualities, with its durability, and generally they're a lot bigger than standard blankets. So I think that's really great. The food is obviously a great choice. Water, you'd have to find contingencies, like you said. Nomad carrying it if freezing is a concern. And then I would just say wool, socks, especially, if you're stuck in that tin can, you're not able to actually, conduct a movement to get out of there. If you have to stay, then, you know where all your cold spots are, cold, is going to cavitate, in like your floorboards. So if you're able to get up off of that, but I think movement needs to be people's biggest priority, being able to have the stuff they need to be able to get out and away, if possible, if feasible,
right?
I suppose.
And definitely something like extricate themselves if their vehicle gets stuck. So I think like either kitty litter if you need like weight in the back to get traction, if you have a rear-wheel drive car, or just kitty litter just to dump out onto the snow or ice so that you can actually get some traction if you don't have, say, tire chains.
You should have tire chains in your vehicle. Yeah.
You should have tire chains though.
I like what you said, Nomad, months ago about having the portable charging.
Oh, the power bank.
The battery bank.
Except it's in my bag. I don't leave it in my vehicle because it'll die. And then same thing with the vehicle like power station charger that everyone's like raves about. I have one too, but I bring it in my house. So I bring it in my vehicle every time, and I bring it out because it'll die in your vehicle if you leave it there.
Yeah, I have one of those for my wife's car. It's like the big like
I
don't know if it's Coleman, Craftsman, whatever, the big yellow one, and that thing's money.
Yeah, but a lot of these things, again, like it's cool to have all this stuff in your vehicle, but if you're like Six said earlier, if you park outside for work and you're not checking it daily, half that stuff's going to be dead. Or the water, like Six said, you bring water, I'm like, it's totally useless now in your vehicle. I think the biggest thing, honestly, for people is like the clothing, like you guys mentioned, the blankets. But honestly, water and food, like you can go 3 days without water. You can go like a month without food, and like that stuff will just freeze. But if you had water in your backpack and like snacks in your bag all the time, I'm like, that'll keep you alive. It's the clothing that'll kill you. Like the weather will get you first.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
exposure.
So for me personally, I don't carry food in my vehicle ever. I carry food in my backpack, but not in my vehicle. There's no point. I live somewhere too cold. I don't carry water in my vehicle either.
Yeah.
It's just the clothing.
Well, and it's so fast. It happened so fast. When I was in high school, we had a more harsh winter, and I had just a little water bottle in my cup holder. Went to class, came back, and it busted. It had frozen. Yeah. And it's like, for what, a couple hours that I was away from my truck. I mean, it's so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty crazy.
That's insane too. Yeah. Cause I can remember when I lived in Indiana. Yeah. I left a couple bottles of water in my car. Just totally forgot about them and came back out and was like, oh man, I'm thirsty. I can't remember if I was coming out of high school or what. And I reached back there to grab one and it was just a solid block of ice.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that's right. Cold freezes stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nomad, talk a little bit about just personal preparation for winter, because you do live in more than 6 or I do.
So again, because we're talking like from a Dadisode perspective, I'd say not only have this stuff for you, but every person in your vehicle, like have spares, like clothing for everybody in your vehicle.
100%. What about
again,
on your person?
On your person, so I carry gloves all the time, like winter gloves. We call them toques. You guys call them beanies. Like I have a winter hat all the time. Yeah. I also have a really, really, really big puffy coat that I bring with me, but I don't drive with it on. I put it behind my seat, like over the headrest. So I literally have it as an emergency. If I have to get on my vehicle or something, I can put it on.
Smart.
Yeah. Because again, people, not to like insult normal people's intelligences, but people, they don't delayer. They're like, oh, it's cold outside, I'm putting all my stuff on. Then they get in their vehicle and crank the heat, and then they're sweaty. Or not even sweaty. This is honestly worse. You shouldn't be warm in your vehicle in the dead of winter. You should be like comfortable. So when you stop and get out, you're not like freezing cold. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I do it.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's kind of how I do it. Then like kind of everything we talk about in the EDC. So I always carry, like we said, the pocket knife. I don't carry a lighter because they do not work where I live. In like -30, a Bic lighter doesn't work. I carry the ferro rod in my pocket every day.
Interesting.
Like a Bic lighter will not light in this cold. It just won't.
I almost wonder if that's just because of the sheer like freezing point, if it just messes with the butane.
Yeah, or like the actual spark. Like I don't know what it is. It will not light in like -35 Fahrenheit or -40 Celsius. Wherever you live, somewhere that cold, it just doesn't work.
So I've been quiet about this for a while, but I think it's about time to tell you. I don't think God wants you there, man. just people in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right.
So yeah, on my person, like I have that, but I do carry a lighter in my coat pocket, but I don't use it. And it doesn't work.
I like that you brought up the beanie or the toque.
Yeah, the toque or beanie or hat.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because so much heat is lost through the head.
Yeah.
So like layering, being able to up or down layer, having something for a head covering is huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're an adult, people just don't do it because it doesn't look cool or it's unprofessional looking, right? From a business standpoint, if you work in an office, they're like, well, my hair. Right. I'm like, yeah, but it's -40. You're going to like lose your ears walking from the car to your parking lot. You're going to get frostbite.
Right.
So
I also wanted to bring up an old Army acronym, COLDER.
Yep.
Right. So C, clean. Make sure that your clothing is clean. Dirt can clog up like the fibers and make your clothing less able to regulate for the cold. Overheating. So like you said, with the dropping layers, if you overheat, if you sweat and then you get out of your car, or you have to go and walk or anything, that's going to make you colder more than anything. That's going to freeze you super quick. That's always been an Army thing. I know that's same when you were in. You always were
comfortably cold when we started.
Comfortably, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say comfortably cold.
Yeah.
And then every time that you were comfortably cold, then you did movement or you had to go off and actually do your job. Then all of a sudden you were hot. Weirdest thing. I think especially with the L, so loose and layering. So layer your clothing, needs to be loose on your skin. Constriction isn't great for airflow. Then, like we said, just causing you to sweat, keeping all that sweat tight against your skin, not a good deal. Keeping everything dry, that's a no-brainer. Examining and repairing clothing as you go. So not as much just in an everyday context, but if you're out hunting, hiking, mucking around, outside, if you tear your clothing or you puncture your clothing or anything that is it's defeated the garment. So air's gonna rush in and do its thing. Cold, snow, wind, rain. So just keeping good maintenance of your equipment, your shelter, the first shelter being your clothing.
I got another tip back to the vehicle thing. Sorry, because we were talking about it before you jump. There's this weird thing that people don't do. It's called going out before you need to leave somewhere and turn your vehicle on 10 minutes before, so it's warm when you get in, so you can strip down before you get in and drive. And then if you're really fancy like me, I have an automatic car starter, so I just do it from my phone and it turns on your vehicle. Like everyone has that in Canada in the winter.
Nice.
Because it's so cold, right? You can do it from a building or whatever.
Right, I've seen that going home from the hospital. And people will start their car while they're still in the hospital going to the parking garage.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I'm like, that's something you can do so that when you like what you're saying about the layering, taking it on or off. I'm never driving and I'm getting in my vehicle and it's from a dead cold, right? Like I'm letting the vehicle warm up before I leave my house, or if I'm out somewhere, like I said, I'll turn it on from my phone. And then that way, whenever I get in the vehicle, I can, like you said, already strip down from that really big coat. So I'm not, uncomfortable when I'm driving. That's
smart. What do you guys do for defrosting your windows and everything?
So every time I turn off my vehicle, it's already set to defrost and I have it on max heat. Nice. And then same thing. So when I start it, it warms up before I drive from a cold start.
Have you seen the covers that people have for their windshields?
So those freeze to people's windshields though. Yeah.
I'm just not acclimated to your level of cold. Because in Texas, that's totally good to go. You don't have to worry about it. But
it'll freeze to your windshield.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The other thing you see people do, and I do it depending on where I park. But again, I have a garage, so I don't leave my vehicle outside. But if I'm out on a mall or something or anywhere else, you lift your windshield wipers off your vehicle. You know what I mean? Yeah, you guys have seen that, so it doesn't freeze. But
we do that,
but again, depending on where you live, if you live somewhere really ghetto, people will steal your windshield wiper blades. I've seen that happen. You're driving around and there's vehicles with no blades. People will take them. So now you drive away and you have no way to do your windshields.
That's messed up.
So I can neither confirm or deny that I have done that when I was younger.
Yeah, people do that here. So
you're a dirtbag.
I wasn't when I was a kid, not gonna lie.
So, but yeah, again, it's just this prior proper planning thing we always preach, right? If you start your vehicle before your family needs to get in or you need to go somewhere, I'm like, okay, it's not from a cold start. If you have stuff stored in your vehicle, that doesn't matter if you get stuck.
Well, and having something like a windshield scraper.
Yeah.
Something super simple. So when I worked at an old clinic, I wasn't even working that day, but I was driving home from Walmart or something. I saw one of the providers I knew. He was outside just looking at his car because it completely frozen over. He wasn't able to get inside his vehicle to defrost it. And so the entire vehicle was covered in ice. And so I said, "Hey man, you okay?" He's like, "I think so, but I can't get in my car." So this guy's stuck at this clinic alone at 8:00 at night. So locked out of the clinic outside, and it's
it's freezing out.
It can happen to anybody. Yeah, it's freezing out. This can happen to anybody. So I stopped and I helped him, get into his car, scraped all his windows, all his windshields, and he was fine. But it's how do you not have a windshield scraper, an ice scraper? It's crazy.
Again, I don't know because it snows here in June where I live. That's normal. So everyone has one, but I just, again, you don't have to live as far north as I do to have this all the time. Because like you said, Texas 2021 is a perfect example. You were days without power in your home. And you were in your home. You weren't even having to drive around. Like your whole state shut down. And you just held out in your house.
Yeah.
So again, the vehicle should be like you said, it's your other form of protection. It's your other defense, But windshield washer fluid too. Like I always carry spare in my vehicle because obviously we're talking about the winter. When you're driving, you're gonna be blasting through more windshield washer fluid naturally as you're just trying to scrape off your vehicle or have your windshield wipers going like crazy. So I carry 2 full like jugs in my vehicle. And if you get the winter one, it won't freeze. Everyone's like, "Oh, it'll freeze." I'm like, "It's not. It's a chemical. It won't freeze in your vehicle. You just have."
I was actually going to ask about that. Because
they won't freeze.
I have actually had windshield wiper fluid freeze.
So you have to get 4 season or winter one, but yeah.
Oh.
And it won't freeze. Yeah.
Have you ever used like Rain-X?
I haven't.
Like No.
What is it?
It's just a coating that you can put on your windshield on your windows. It just makes water bead. So
okay.
It's just like anti water kind of thing.
You essentially don't even have to turn on your windshield wipers at all.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like a straight up.
Well, that's cool. So it just beads off. It's like a drip.
Yeah, it's just
thing.
a chemical barrier. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. No, I've never used that. No, I just have like winter windshield washer fluid. Actually, I don't even have the normal one. I bought like winter ones. At some point at Costco, they had a whole jug of them on sale. My garage is loaded with these things, so I use winter ones all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think the big thing is honestly just having equipment for everybody, not just you, right? Like everyone in your vehicle have a spare.
Yeah,
everything
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
At the very least, have a spare for at least one person, or a big enough blanket that can encompass 2 or 3 people. Like I have a blanket from, and this is not recommended for freaking winter, but I have a 10-foot by 10-foot blanket from a big blanket company. Holy crap, dude. Anyway, this thing will my wife and I can lay on opposite ends of the couch and it will still, we have excess. It's insane. I love it.
I don't,
but no, definitely a bigger blanket to help out in those situations.
Yeah. And not just freezing, but, so like I grew up in Oregon, so, it didn't freeze all the time there during winter, but it was always, it seemed just like pouring down rain. Just like buckets every single day. So like that Rain-X, that compound, like I said, was a big deal because it helped a lot with visibility. You didn't have to rely as much on your wipers if all of the water just beat it off. Having like a poncho, having extra layers if you get soaked, just little things like that mean a lot during winter, where if it's not just enough to be cold, but if you're wet and cold, you're miserable. That's even worse time.
Yeah, so you're probably gonna die if you're wet and cold and you're trapped outside, or you're trapped in your vehicle. And honestly, like, I don't advocate for anybody to stay in their vehicle. That could be a whole other episode on itself. But like, it's just an ice box. If your vehicle's trapped, there have been thousands of people who have died in their car in a snowbank.
Yeah,
it's best to leave.
Yeah,
but again,
you need to be prepared to leave.
But again, you can't leave if you don't have spare boots, or like Six said, you don't have hand warmers, you don't have like gloves, you don't have a hat. I'm like, well, that's why people think holding on their vehicle is smart. Like, you're gonna die in your vehicle because you can't have a fire. At the end of the day, you can't make a fire in the back of your truck, but you could if you left. So,
well, and how many people have?
You could set your car on fire.
Yeah,
it's one option.
Well, and how many people have just maps of their area in their vehicle?
Oh, nobody. I yeah, like I have 3 provincial maps in my bag. I have like the province to my left and the province to my right. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
right.
So if I had to leave, I have it for every area. But yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said, though. You there's a lot of room for stuff. You just have to bring the right things.
Yeah, you have to be smart with your space. I only brought up the maps because how many people rely on their phones for directions?
Oh, everybody.
How many people can even get to their work or their grocery store, their friend's house, 2 or 3 different ways besides what Google gives you.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can do that. So what if, on top of, you being, frozen, your vehicle in a pile up, your phone dies.
Yeah, because it wasn't charged probably like everybody else before you got in your vehicle. Because your plan was my phone charger in my vehicle. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you're like, okay, well, I don't have anything I need, but I can make it to my buddy's house. But then you're in, whiteout conditions and you don't actually remember what road you're on because you never bothered to memorize the name of the roads, uh, there's a lot going on there.
That's exactly right. I was going to bring that up too. Is just most people don't even memorize the names of the roads around them. They may know the street they're on. Like, God, I'd hope you know the street you're on. But then, like, the road that intersects and the road that intersects, like, it's your immediate area, and how you not know those. I mean, I get it if you just moved to that area maybe a year, maybe two ago, but if you don't know the names of the roads in like your immediate area, like that's kind of an issue because what if you need, I don't know, someone to come help you out? Like, are you gonna know the name of the road you're on?
Yeah, I was gonna say not even just
Probably
for
not.
navigation, but being able to call people to your location. Say like,
Yes.
Call 911. All right, where are you? Oh,
Just crickets.
well, I'm on that one road.
know.
Like that doesn't work.
And I think that's why nowadays when you do call 911, your location gets broadcast so that they can actually pick that up. At least I think that's what that is, because I've had my phone locked out before in emergency mode.
That's a gross breach of my privacy.
Right.
I don't appreciate it.
There is something to be said for that.
What else do you guys?
I was gonna say, what about home preps? We talked about on your person. We talked about vehicle. So, getting your home ready for winter.
Well, there's so many things, but like honestly, I'll start the easy one. So food and water. So kind of how, not to contradict myself, I said I don't carry food around in my vehicle because it'll freeze, which it's true. But having food and water in your home, because like what you were saying, Seven, about your dad growing up in like where'd you say he grew up again? Wyoming? Wisconsin, sorry. And like his doors covered in snow, and I'm like, man, there's people in like where I live where you could be trapped in your home for 4 days, and what if you don't have enough food? And again, this is like a bigger issue on like being prepared, because everyone has this fantasy of the apocalypse. But I'm like, the winter is a perfect example. What if you can't leave your home? Food and water should be the first thing you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, if you live in an apartment, in whatever urban center in America, you obviously can't have a fireplace. But even like you said, for you, Seven, you had your entire family in your living room, and you were like burning everything in your fireplace to not freeze.
Yeah, so literally when it happened, it was like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening when we lost power, and I just looked at my wife. It's like, oh crap. And I had that oh crap moment. Then it's like, okay, well, now I have to take charge. So I said, okay, go pull the couches together. That's where we'll sleep. We'll, set up a tent for my boy. And so we literally set up his little, kids tent in the middle of the living room facing the fireplace. I, had all the wood. Obviously, I'm, outdoors. I love fire. So I had, a pretty sizable, amount of firewood, but we burned through almost all of that, during the 4 days. And I also had, I think, a 50-pound bag of, hardwood, charcoal, like for grilling.
Oh, for like your barbecue. Yeah.
So like the actual hardwood lumps. Yeah. And we burned that because that burned incredibly hot in my fireplace. But I burned in my fireplace for 4 days straight. So I'd wake up intermittently throughout the night to keep it going because I slept right by it. So I knew when it would get cold, because I'm trying to heat the entire living room. Yeah. Right. We had covered the windows, everything. Right. And I'd burn that for so hot for so long. I cracked the stones all the way up into my
in your actual chimney, or like your fireplace.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But
did you ever get that fixed?
Well, of course. Yeah. But
okay.
We have, thank God we had canned foods. I went out and I bought, the night before it happened, like a 60 count of eggs, because everything else was stripped from the shelves because everyone was freaking out. I have chickens now, thank God. That's a lot easier. But I went out and I bought a cast iron wok, and we ended up using that for cooking in our fireplace. So
that's smart.
Yeah, it gets real fast, man.
So that brings up a point that I like to hit too, because I mean, it affects you in the winter as it's same as it does in the summer. because I mean, you blast AC, you blast
Mhm.
heat. You need to winterize your house,
Mhm.
so you need to be checking like the weather stripping around your doors, your windows if you need to. I mean, I would check the caulking too,
Mhm.
just to make sure that there's no gaps to allow heat to go out.
Mm-hmm.
I would check your fireplace to make sure there's no cracks in there, or to make sure that the cold air can't come in through the top of it. I
Go
mean,
outside and look at
you
your
I
roof. The
Mhm.
spots where there
yeah,
isn't ice, you need to fix that insulation.
yeah, exactly. Definitely make sure that your insulation is up to spec, because I mean, I need to redo mine just because, good lord, it hasn't been done in well a while.
Yeah. Something
Kind of falling behind on that.
something that I considered, during the freeze that I haven't acted on yet. I don't know if I will because I'm not sure of what the odds or what the benefit would be, but I considered um setting up points in like our main entryways, like to the kitchen or
Mhm.
to the entry hall, or to the kids hall, setting up anchors to where I could like drill in moving blankets
Mm.
to cover
To like
and
seal these sections.
yeah, you have to seal
Mhm.
off like rooms
Yep.
so you can compartmentalize the
The
heat. But that's something that's down the line a little bit, a more drastic measure.
Yeah.
But it's you have to think of these things because if you have an entire house full of dead space and hallways where all that heat's just gonna escape, that's huge. I mean, hell no, man, you warm your house with wood heat.
Mhm.
You know better than
I do,
we
yeah.
do how important that is, and how that is a yearly, like, that is a seasonal task that never stops.
It's a weekly chore. I split wood
Yeah.
every week.
It never stops,
Yeah.
or you'll freaking freeze to death.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up those 7 like dividing sections of your house. So the way you want to do it is like the best solution. And yeah, your old lady might think you're weird because you're like drilling stuff in your house. But if people just lost power, and like we did that here growing up in Canada, is you prioritize like what you do with your family. So my parents would close all the doors like on the exterior parts of the house, like in other bedrooms, and we would block the bottom of the door with towels, and then we'd all sleep in like the living room.
Mhm.
So again, it doesn't have to be drastic like what you're saying. That's like an emergency, but people could do these things, right? Just close every door,
Smart.
block
Mhm.
literally every gap with a towel, and we hung out in the living room for like the 4 days we lost power.
Yeah.
But again, how many people don't even have enough towels to jam their doors? You know what I mean? Or like you said, they don't have enough firewood to not leave their house. Like for you as well, how much firewood do you think you burned in 4 days to not die?
Probably a cord.
A cord? Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, right? And then for those people listening who don't know what a cord is, it's a standard measurement of how they justify what a pile of wood is. It's the Canada. I think you guys are the same, right? It's 4 feet by 8 feet by 4 feet. That's a
I was
cord.
gonna say, I think it's like it's supposed to be the back of a truck, the bed of a truck.
No, so
like if you entirely filled
that's
it.
not an accurate measurement because
Oh, it's not?
what if trucks have short beds or long beds? It's 4
No,
feet
that's
by
fair.
8 feet by 4.
Mm.
So
That's fair.
full disclaimer, if you guys are listening and you're like, oh, he's selling a truckload for this much, I'm like, is it a cord? Because a truckload is a very different volume completely. So the volume actually is 128 cubic feet in total. That's how much wood you should get. And it's 4 feet by 8 feet by 4 feet. That's a cord. And if you burned a cord in 4 days during a crazy storm, think of how much I burn daily to like keep my home heated like normally.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
Well,
I go through a lot of wood.
Asinine.
Well, and so that was an emergency for my family, right?
Yeah.
That was the wood I had because I burned recreationally, right?
Yeah.
But if
So
we
you were more
gained
prepared
power,
than most people because that
But-
like you had that. Yeah.
well, yeah, but if we gained power for a few days and then lost power again,
Oh, you would have had no wood.
I would have had no wood.
Yeah.
But
Screwed.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like, thank God I had the forethought. Just
Mhm.
am the way that I am. That I had that amount of wood.
Yeah, totally.
But I made it by that much. So I mean, it's a huge gut
It's
check.
a huge 100%. And again, you are the best person to like test that, scenario with your family. Obviously you didn't want to, but like you now reevaluated on what's a priority. But again, most people are like, well, I live in Texas. Why would that happen? And you're like, man, it happened to me. I burned a cord of wood in 4 days, and like I have recreational wood. You don't even stockpile like I do.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, when the power initially went off, just looking at my wife like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? Within a couple seconds, I had to be able to recall where we had our headlamps so that we can move around our house that was suddenly dark in order to get the things that we needed. So be able to go out to the garage, which was cold, by the way, to find our camping totes so we could get out all of our supplies and everything else. I mean, if you don't have these things, if you don't have flashlights in your house, if you don't have headlamps in your house, how are you going to move around in the dark? It's these little things that people take for granted, and it's just, it can get so real so fast.
True. Yeah. One solution we had growing up was that we just had candles. We had stockpiles of frickin' candles. So obviously a perishable.
I have that too.
Or a non-renewable source. So, I mean, but it's, candles can be a lot cheaper than stockpiling batteries upon batteries upon batteries,
Yeah. And have you seen the was it the little hack with a clay pot for like little space heaters?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just knowing those little tricks can be huge too.
Yeah, and like and again, there's like so many things for your home, but people are just they take it for granted because they're like, well, I don't live, in like Nunavut or Yellowknife or whatever. I'm like, okay, but what happens if something happened like Seven just said, and all of Texas shut down for 4 days and people were probably dying in their vehicles because they just had flip-flops.
And it doesn't even have to be a disaster. I mean, I don't remember where it was, but within the last 6 months, we've had people attacking intentionally the power grid.
Yeah, in North Carolina, I think, right? That's where it was, or something.
It was multiple places.
So you could be doing everything right. You could have totally fine weather, and someone could,
purposely try to destabilize your area
and cut out power for 50,000 people. I mean, yeah,
and like
crazy.
Again, all the more reason to like go solar. Have wind turbines. Do something self-sufficient. Don't rely on like the power grid because I mean, obviously that can fail.
Do you guys?
I mean, I get that it's not like something that a lot of people can do just because of cost, but it's something you probably should try to look into, or at the very least have a generator.
I was just going to ask that. For generators, are you guys able to hook up a generator to your actual like box outside and repower your house, or how would you do it if you had a generator?
Not legally.
So
okay, so not legally you can't do that.
But I can. I got a guy. I know a guy.
Okay.
Yeah, down here we have the option to where we can actually put an adapter into the wall and run the entire house's power off of that generator.
Okay, nice.
We can do like the plug-in like gas or diesel generators. We can also do natural gas stuff, like the massive generators that people just literally install outside their houses. So when the power goes out, it immediately clicks on.
That's goals.
So I mean, it's hurricanes, baby.
So for normal people that can't do that or don't have a generator, and because we talk about food and water, again, a super easy hack, but unless you live somewhere as cold as me, people don't really think of it. Because and you guys have experienced this too, right? You lose power, and everyone's like, "Don't open your fridge; your food will go bad." Like, don't go in and out of your fridge because you need to like keep it sealed. So when we lose power here, I'm like, if it was days, I emptied all my food into a cooler and left it outside in a snowbank in my backyard.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I did. I put everything in I've got 2 giant Yeti coolers, and I filled them and I left them in my backyard.
Nice.
So I'm like, hey, the fridge doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's what we actually used to do when I was younger. Like when I was in my early 20s, we'd take like our alcohol during the winter and just literally leave it outside the door.
Yeah, in the freezer, we actually took everything out of our freezer, out of our fridge, and we put it just on the concrete in our garage.
Oh yeah, see, and then exactly.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because it was that cold.
It was that cold, right? But these are things where people forget about the food in their fridge. Or again, the default is, oh, don't open your fridge or freezer. I'm like, well, if you're without power for a week, all your food preps are gonna go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we put it in big Yetis, and for me, and I put it in my backyard by my deck, so no one would steal my food. But yeah, I had it in my backyard.
Yeah, and if you do lose power, having all of your taps that are facing like the our wall side or exterior side in your home, having that on a drip so nothing freezes, having the outside covers for your faucets, that's huge.
Yeah.
And if you don't have one of those, if your dog rips one up like my idiot dog did, then you can wrap it in towels, and that's a stopgap until you can get something with a better seal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so much for like the home prep for winterizing, but again,
Yeah.
I think food and water and like you said, a heat source. And again, I get if you live in an apartment, like I get that. I get you can't have a wood stove. I get you can't have a fireplace, but maybe have winter clothing then, right? Because if you like even like Six said, or get a huge blanket, like the biggest 10 by 10 blanket you can get, buy 10 of them, so you know you could layer up in your house or whatever, or your apartment, so you don't freeze to death. And
Or get a winter sleeping bag.
yeah, exactly that too.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many options. Like I mean, hell, there's even like USB powered hand warmers now,
Yeah.
where you can
my
you can
God,
find
yes.
you can go on Amazon right now and buy a 20 pack of those, like big, hand or feet warmers, and you throw one of those in your sleeping bag and you'll be okay. But yeah, apartment living is very difficult for a lot of these preps. Very difficult.
It is
But
possible.
there is a way.
There is a way. Yeah, it's just it takes more effort. But if you just like Six said, like even you have a winter sleeping bag and have all these blankets and have winter clothing, you will not die.
Yeah.
Right. Like you.
Well,
will,
and
you'll
understanding how cold works.
live.
I mean, like you said, so compartmentalizing your house, covering
Covering, like,
those
wasted
creases,
space.
Yeah, covering wasted space, covering like underneath doors. Just understand like low spots are going to be colder than high spots. Having good insulation underneath you, understanding where your body loses heat, so in your head, just all these little things that will help you make it.
Yeah, and again, for it being with everything happening in the world, like I don't know, globally, about like everyone saying there's this big like push on being green and stuff. I'm like, man, winter is pretty harsh now. I don't know why people haven't figured out you should probably have stuff in your vehicle or like we said, in your apartment or your house.
Yeah, I had during the freeze neighbors who had just moved from Northern California.
Were they
and
depressed?
they left all of their winter stuff in California because they were moving to Texas.
Dude.
And we're talking about like 70, 80-year-old people. And so the entire 4 days they were stuck in their house, in their beds, in sleeping bags.
So they don't die. Yeah.
So they don't die. Like, I checked on them every single day to see if they were still alive. Like, it...
Have you guys ever seen that movie Day After Tomorrow with like Jake Gyllenhaal and Dennis
Oh
Quaid?
my
You know what I'm talking about?
Just gonna reference
That's
that.
nightmares.
Nightmares for sure. But again, I'll on all the people who live in New York because they're like, oh, it's like not that cold here, like in that movie. But like before the storm, right? Six, when they're all walking around, they're barely wearing like hats and gloves. These people, because they're all
Right.
business looking people. I'm like, dude, it is winter. Why do you not own a hat and gloves?
Seriously.
This is insanity. That you like
Or
rely on the
the-
system.
Or the homeless guy that was
I've
stuffing
been-
newspaper in his shirt
Yeah, the homeless dude
for
I
extra
know-
insulation.
Yeah, and all the
I mean, that was
people
smart.
are like, oh, the homeless guy knows how to live. I'm like, yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, so like I've been to New York City in the winter, and I can attest that it doesn't look like that. Like people were walking around
With like hats and gloves.
bundled
Yeah.
up. Like they were properly prepared for that crap because they've been there long enough. They know this crap. But I can't even remember when that movie actually took place. Was that actually during like winter?
I don't even remember if it is supposed to be winter or if it's just a huge storm that comes in. I haven't seen it in a while. I think it's just a storm, isn't it?
I think it was just a huge
I think
storm.
it's a huge storm that comes over.
It's-
It like goes over.
Well, no,
North America.
it was more winter time because everyone was wearing jackets. Like the main cast were all in.
But I don't think they were wearing
like
hats
winter
and
stuff.
gloves though, right? I think it was like fall or something. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like
It wasn't
I think it was
February.
transitory.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's just this weird thing, right? That people don't even own that stuff. Just like you said, Seven, like your elderly neighbors came and they're like, well, I don't need it. I'm like, what if it happened though? And again, I'm not saying you need to have it in your vehicle all the time like me, but maybe have it at your house in general,
Have
right?
something.
As like a baseline. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
weird that people don't think of that. Again, for me from the outside looking in, it's all I've known since I was born and raised here. So it's freezing cold all the time. And like I was talking to both of you earlier before the recording, I changed my phone to Fahrenheit. So every time we talk now, you guys understand the reference of temperature. It was minus 39 Fahrenheit yesterday here, and that was mild. It was colder the day before.
Misery.
Are you kidding me?
And that's a mild day. It was
Dude.
colder the day before.
That's crazy, man.
But again, when we talked about it, I see people walking around with like flip-flops on to the gym. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it has to do with just your temperament, but also learning from example, right?
Mhm.
So like I never had super harsh winters growing up. I grew up in Oregon. It's wet and dark,
Yeah,
cold sometimes.
it's like rainy
but
there.
yeah, it's just like rains 10 months out of the year, right? But my old man grew up in Wisconsin, and he told me stories, and you bet I learned from it.
Mhm.
And I took that with me to Texas, and I still had a tote full of winter stuff,
Mhm.
and it paid off.
Yeah, 100%.
I grew up knowing how to be cold,
Mhm.
and it paid off.
Yeah. It's the same lessons I actually brought with me to Texas when I moved down there, and only had to end up using it one time. Like literally, I moved down there in September, and by December we had 2 weeks of straight ice. So after like 3 days of just sitting in my apartment, I'm like, all right, I actually need to go to the grocery store. And if you've never been to Dallas during a very light dusting, I'm talking like the ground's not even covered. It's just hitting the roadway and kind of sort of sticking. The whole city shuts down. Like it just shuts down. It's like, oh nope, nope, we can't handle this. We can't handle this. Meanwhile, I'm out there just like freaking doing 45 and a 30, watching all these 4-wheel drive trucks spin out on the ice, and I'm just like, huh. I guess you guys really can't drive on this stuff.
Dallas also has like 5-lane highways and all such of other nonsense. Like that's just not worth it.
Yeah. 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 And they treat it all like the Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah. All right. Do you guys have anything else for winter?
I mean,
Honestly,
I guess like
just dress for the weather. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look cool. And again, KK, because we're talking about a Dadisode perspective here. Like, if you dress according to the weather, your kids will dress according to the weather. I don't know how many kids I see whenever I'm driving anywhere and I see them waiting for the bus and they're wearing like the Toronto Blue Jays baseball hat and a like hockey hoodie and it's minus 39 Fahrenheit. Like, what are you doing? Like, I hope you die. I hope you lose a finger or a hand. You'll remember this because your parents are probably not dressed accordingly either, right? Whereas for me, both my kids wear winter coats and toques and gloves. It's like it's normal.
Or I don't know,
built different.
they're your children. Like
Yeah,
make
because
make
make
them
wear it.
dress according to the weather.
Exactly.
My 4-year-old does not want to wear a coat or a jacket or anything other than a t-shirt and shorts, regardless of the weather.
Mhm.
I love him very much, and so I make him wear clothes that are appropriate for the weather.
Yeah.
Whether or not he, is sad or mad or anything, like that's my job, and so I do it. Like,
but
like
again,
you said, make your
it's trying
kids
to
dress according to
to
weather.
normalize this because I don't even know how many times I've gotten arguments with like ex-girlfriends where I'm like, yo, we're going out to do whatever, and they're like, oh, we're driving. I'm like, where's your coat? And they're like, well, it's just like it's a short walk from the car. I'm like, what if the car breaks down? That would be my question every time, right? So trying to normalize it for the adults, it's
Yeah.
like it seems to be an uphill battle, but again, all these examples we mentioned, obviously day after tomorrow would be like the worst case, but the freezing in Texas, or like we said,
yeah,
just like Six was saying, like the people in New York or the destabilization in North Carolina, wherever, like
Mhm.
people should probably have winter clothing. It's a normal thing if you live in the northern hemisphere. There's a possibility it's going to happen.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Well, and it's going to be so any kind of normalization is going to be an uphill battle. Like we talked about with our roots episode,
Mhm.
right? We are fighting against passivity and
Yeah.
comfort. So it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be hard, but is the best for everybody. It's going to keep people safe.
Yep, and it'll be a generational solution that we figured out, like we said, where our grandkids are wearing coats or have shovels or whatever.
And they don't even think about it.
Don't even think about it.
Yeah, it'll be a normal, natural thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what we're fighting
And
for.
I hate to say it, but this is all about developing common sense and critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Common sense is
100%.
not all that common. And critical thinking, I mean, people just expect to be handed stuff.
It's
or
work.
have stuff like
It's work.
Barney, broken it down Barney style for them. Like, yeah, you're exactly right. It's work. It's like deliberate planning, deliberate thinking, and the vast majority of the stuff that we've said may not apply to everybody. It's a matter of taking your own situation, your own planning, what you think can and will happen in your area, and actually putting that into practice. Just practice, you know.
Well, it's the most likely versus most dangerous.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yes. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But again, if you live in the northern hemisphere, your most dangerous is the day after tomorrow. And guess what? It has happened before, right?
Yeah.
But you're most likely, if you live in, I don't know, pick a, like, for you guys, like, pick a central state and, like, draw a line across the United States and be like, if you live here north, you should probably have a winter coat in your vehicle all the time. Doesn't matter what time of year. Something could happen, right?
If you're south of this line, you should.
If you're south of this line, own one. Exactly. If you're north of this line, it's in your vehicle all the time.
Honestly, if you're north of the Rio Grande, you probably should
have it in your vehicle. Yeah, and probably have something.
And not to go on another rabbit hole, but buying quality stuff. Like I remember, I think I was 12 or 13, and my folks bought me one of those like big puffy Carhartt coats. Right, I still have that thing. I wear that every single winter, and it looks brand spanking new. Like, buy things that are built to last, that are built for work, and you'll do yourself a favor.
Well, especially for the clothing, because like you said it earlier, for like the colder acronym and like your obviously keeping it clean and stuff, but the repair, if you keep your stuff serviceable, it will last like decades, and and like it's your first layer against the elements, rain gear or insulating layer, whatever. But because we're specifically talking about winter, probably own a really good winter coat. That's probably a must. Again, if you live, like we said, north of whatever line, you should have
that and boots.
Yeah, that and
winter boots.
Yeah, and if you live south of this line, you should probably own it. At least have it in your house. Because again, Texas is the perfect example. You were probably way south of the line people are imagining in their head, yet you still had a snowstorm that like knocked out hundreds of thousands of people were frozen in their homes for 4 days.
In freaking Central Texas.
Yeah. In Central Texas. And they were finding like geriatrics dead in their homes.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is like wherever you live, like Six said, figure out what works for you. But winter is a thing. Winter has come and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And it comes every year. So why do people not, realize I need a winter coat, or, maybe if my windows aren't sealed or whatever in my house, right? Seal them up. Or like we said, if you're so, in dire need financially, like what I said my family did when we were like trapped, we just blocked off sections of the house and we weren't allowed to even open the door.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a Dadisode, right? These are things that your dad show taught you. If you're a dad, take note. If you want to be a dad, take note. You are the leader. You set the standard, and you set the standard for generations after you. So make it a good one.
Exactly.
Yeah, set it high.
Yeah. So that being said, dad advice. Nomad go.
Oh man, my last advice was really good. I don't know how I'm going to top that. No. Okay, because
dad advice for winter.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
for anything,
so same thing. Dad advice. Sorry, in regards to winter. I'm planning to take over for everyone else in my care because my 13-year-old is probably not going to remember a glove or something. So I have spares of everything in my vehicle for every person in the vehicle.
I guess for me it would be think ahead. Whatever you think could go wrong probably will go wrong. So plan for that.
Exactly. And then you, Seven?
My dad advice, I'm going to tell everyone who's listening what my father told me every single day growing up until I left home. Bring a jacket.
Bring a jacket. Exactly.
Bring a jacket. Yep.
Well, I was going to say you're a disappointment. that makes sense.
Harsh but fair. Bring a jacket. All right, guys. Hope you had fun with us. Hope you learned something. This was our Dadisode on winter. We are the hard times, strong men. Stay in the fight.